Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I am joined today by a very special guest, MMA journalist, Colin Crandall. Colin, how are you today?
Excellent. Luke, doing great, trying to figure out how I can get a better view on this. But as a Generation X guy, it's quite difficult to figure out, as I'm sure you've probably heard, whereas I'm sure some Generation Z and younger millennials would have figured this out minutes ago, whereas I continue to press something that does nothing. But that's okay. Nevertheless, I'm doing great. Glad to be here with you, my friend.
Thank you very much. Obviously, you are the host of the MMA Power Hour. So, Colin, tell me how you fell into love with mixed martial arts.
Well, I was a young man. I'm not going to say how young, but I was a young man in 1991. I keep forgetting whether it was late 91 or early 1992. And I knew a couple of guys, a father and son martial artist, and the son was a bit younger than me, so I think I was never saw him that often. But the father was a little bit older than me. He was a chiropractor, and he also had black belts in two traditional karate styles. And even though I was quite young, I'd started doing martial arts and lifting weights when I was quite young. And so I started to, have a bit of aches and pains, and went in for a few chiropractic adjustments. And, so one day, I think it was late 91 or early 92, he said, "Colin, let me show you this holds." He goes, "I've been studying this Gracie Jiu-Jitsu from some guys in their garage nearby." And
Yeah,
he showed me, and I was like, "Wow, that hurts. What the hell is that?" And he said, "Oh, these are submission holds." And he said, "Let me show you these two VHS tapes." And that's the predecessor of the DVD and Blu-ray. And he said these were home camera. They used to call camcorder tapes for the Gracies. And so I watched those, and I think it was approximately a full year later, when he said, they're going to be having an event, because they had what preceded the Ultimate Fighting Championship in Brazil was actually no holds barred fighting. They called Vale Tudo in Portuguese, which means approximately anything goes. But what the Gracies were doing in the United States, where several of them had been here since the early mid 1980s, was they were having something called the Gracie Challenge. They were inviting any martial artist or street fighter or anyone that wanted to come to their martial arts school for an actual fight. And I think they
yeah,
were saying that if you can beat our Gracie team member, you'd get $1,000. And they would match people fairly, because they had Gracie brothers of different sizes. None of them were extremely heavy, but they had Gracie brothers anywhere from 5'4" to 6'2" or 3. And the lighter weight ones were, 140 pounds, or as you would say, like 10 stone. And then the heaviest ones were maybe 15 stone. Anyway, so they would match you up based on your size. And they were undefeated. And because virtually nobody understood these joint locks, submission holds, and choke holds. And so anyway, they had been doing that, and then they had the VHS tapes from the actual Vale Tudo fights in Brazil, when my friend told me that, look, he showed me a copy of the press kit for UFC #1 prior to the event. And I was
yeah,
familiar with it already through him for about a year. And even though I was quite young, I was a boxing fan and had watched boxing with my father. And I told him, even though I was young, how is this going to be legal in any state in the United States? I said, I don't see who's going to permit this. And he said, well, they're going to go to Denver, Colorado, which actually they haven't held combat sports events. So he said, there's no athletic commission governing combat sports. That's how they got around it, because there
yeah,
was no one questioning it. And anyway, so I was familiar with what was going to happen. The only guy that I was curious about was Ken Shamrock, looking, completely jacked up on steroids, with all respect, but there was no rule saying he couldn't.
yeah,
So he wasn't breaking any rule, but he was, a slight bit shorter than Hoist Gracie by maybe an inch or two, but much heavier. and he had been competing in pancrase in Japan, which
Yeah.
was like MMA fighting, but you couldn't strike to the head with a closed fist. And Bas Rutten became well known for that, and you would be a king of pancrase. But anyway, so I was one of the few people, perhaps several hundred, maybe, I think, in the United States that were aware of what was going to happen. Now, some people had already been studying and devoted, so I'm not putting myself above those people, but nevertheless, I was one of a small amount of people from having learned a few of the holds, but having seen the videos of what was going to happen. Sorry for making that such a big monologue, but so from the beginning, I liked it. From the beginning, I not only liked it, I loved it. And right, I just said to myself, this is the chess match of martial arts. This is what Bruce Lee had asked about. This is what my late friend, the great stuntman and godfather of mixed martial arts judo, Gene LaBelle, had said, is that at some point you're going to have to know more than just one style of fighting to be successful. And so I knew it would succeed. It went through a lot of changes, but from the get-go, even in the incarnation of being no gloves, headbutts allowed, groin strikes, I still knew that this was a new era that was going to catch the public's fancy. And from then, I've never turned away from it.
So from the very beginning of mixed martial arts, what do you think is the biggest thing that's evolved from at the beginning to now? What do you think is the biggest change that you've seen?
I mean, so many. The sport has changed dramatically. It was called no holds barred fighting then, NHB. And I actually still have a sweatshirt I purchased from Full Contact Fighter in like 2001 that said Full Contact Fighter, and on both shoulders it says NHB. And that's what it was, no holds barred fighting. In the original rule, the only things you couldn't do, there was no eye gouging, there was no biting, and there was no what they called fish hooking, which is putting your fingers in someone's mouth to pull their head around. Other than that, all was legal. Groin shots were legal. Hair pulling was legal. You could stomp on a downed opponent, kick an opponent in the head on the ground. You could bring elbows directly down on them in the back of their head and neck. So I think the biggest change are the rules that have been implemented and techniques that have been removed. I'm not saying that's all 100% positive, because there is some debate that perhaps a few of these techniques should still be allowed. People have differing opinions on that, but I think the fact that it was modified enough so that there wasn't a huge protest against it. There are still some people that hate it and don't like it and so on.
Yeah.
But, the fact that, it was some of the crazy techniques were removed. They don't have to have a viewer advisory on it now. There's the referees are aware of when to stop it, and, greater fighter safety. And I think the rule set allows a lot of higher profile athletes to come in, right? We have athletes coming in, some that made it all the way to the Olympics in judo or Greco-Roman wrestling, freestyle wrestling, collegiate wrestling, some that didn't make the Olympics but came close, world kickboxing champions, Brazilian jiu-jitsu champions. Right, NFL players. Yeah, absolutely. Whereas in the early days, it wasn't. Nobody with tremendous pedigree was jumping in, save for a couple of wrestlers in the starting in the fourth UFC with Dan Severn. But early on, really, it was a bunch of crazy guys that were very brave and courageous. And then like one boxer, but other than that, it was basically a bunch of really brave guys who had no idea what was going to happen. In fact, I'll tell you a funny thing I learned, because I'm acquaintances of, I hate to use the word friends inaccurately, because too many people do. So I'm acquaintance on very good terms with one of the co-creator of the UFC, Art Davie, who created it with Horian Gracie. And I don't know whether it was he that told me or a story that I read from an old article, but when they had that first tournament and they had all the guys there that had to sign waivers, apparently as it got closer to the pay-per-view airing time, a lot of the guys were looking at each other and saying, I don't know, maybe we ought to get the hell out of here before this insanity starts. And apparently a lot of guys were hesitant, I think, to sign the final papers and were debating leaving. And then I think it was the Hawaiian who got knocked out in the first fight who said, I don't know about you guys, but I'm here to fight. And he kind of motivated a lot of the other guys to say, yeah, what the hell? I'm here to fight. I'm not leaving. But it was courageous because they had no idea what was going to happen. No one did, except for the Gracies, having done Vale Tudo in Brazil.
Yeah, I think so. So the sport of mixed martial arts has changed a lot for the better. Is there anything that was back in the day that have sort of been left out? Is there anything that you'd bring back? Any old school rules that you'd like to see come back?
That is a great question. Sorry to step on your words. I hate to say anything that I haven't thought all the way through. I think if you talk to someone who's watched it all the way through from the beginning, like I have, you'll find differing opinions. None are completely right. I think the Brazilians, many of the Gracies, the guys would say it's lost it's lost a bit too much of the reality of it being a real fight. And even though when you remove eye gouging and fish hooking and biting and like that, when you remove that, you're also removing a bit of the essence of street fighting. But a lot of the Gracies would say a fight should not be stood up. The only way a fight should get off the ground is if the fighter who's losing on the ground can get off the ground. Yeah. That's a thought, but I know that a good amount of audience would be lost because some of the audience really much prefers the striking over grappling. And if that were the rule, some of these fights would stay on the ground the whole time. The Gracies also would say, don't have these rounds, don't have rounds. Make it a solid time, They can't make it unlimited because of the cost of pay-per-view, but maybe they'd say make it like a 15-minute straight duration. I don't know if that would work. It'd be exciting to see. The knees to a grounded opponent, some people are saying would definitely change things a bit. I'm open to that because then it could benefit and work against both the expert wrestler and the non-wrestler. The stomping of someone's head on the ground or kicking someone in the head on the ground, I don't think I would personally bring back. No. The elbow, I wouldn't want to bring back any elbows to the spine, and the back of the neck. I also think if we brought back downward elbows, there'd be some really nasty cuts. So I probably wouldn't bring that back. Headbutts, no. Groin shots, no. Maybe the knees to the ground opponent.
I was about to say that because there's been some situations in fights that they're not completely down. It's just one knee on the canvas, and then I think there's been many fighters that have been disqualified because of the knees just touched.
Right. Briefly. Whereas if you knew it was coming, you couldn't just fake or not. You couldn't just have the one hand on the ground. If you knew it was legal, no matter how many hands you have on the ground. So that could be interesting. I know that there will definitely be some knockouts, but I think it would keep the wrestlers honest when they came in trying to grab a leg, because if they stayed there, they could get kneed in the head. On the flip side of it, like in the last week's fight with Merab versus Piotr Jan, a wrestler could use it if he keeps taking a guy down but can't really control the guy on the ground. Well, he could drop a knee in the guy's head and possibly knock him out. Like, I think if they were allowed, Merab would have finished Piotr Jan because he could have held him down, gotten the positions, and then thrown some brutal knees and either knocked him cold or cut him. But usually those knees on the ground were knocking people out or close to it. Yeah.
Well, speaking of Merab and that bantamweight main event, there is another bantamweight main event this weekend in Corey Sandhagen versus Marlon Chito Vera. What do you feel about this main event? And does a win for either guy push them closer towards a title opportunity?
Indeed. Very close. I'm keeping an eye also on the fact that I'm probably going to have to remove my headset and plug in, which is fine because the speaker works well on this phone. So yeah, I mean, you're asking my thoughts about that matchup and the ramifications.
Yeah,
definitely very important for both guys. I think they're right up there along with Sean O'Malley and along with Marab and I think someone else is in there that I'm perhaps forgetting. But yeah, I think that conceivably the winner gets the next title shot. If not that, they would get it after perhaps Sean O'Malley, or there's also Umar Nurmagomedov who's in
Yes.
that mix, right? So, but this would put the winner in a great position to be demanding a title shot. It's a great fight for both of them. Um, uh, it's in the larger cage because they're actually in the sports arena, other
Yes.
than instead of the Apex, and that would
They're not in
favor
the Apex, which I think
no.
massively benefits. I think for me, that stays up and watches it late. I think the fact that they're moving out of the Apex means that I'm more likely to stay awake watching it because the crowd noise sort of keep
Right, I
you
love
like
that. I love
upright,
that.
awake. I think the Apex, it was great during the pandemic, but I think now things are starting to move back to normal. I'm sort of glad that the UFC are going, yeah, we're going to be doing less and less Apex cards, and we're going to start moving it across America. And I think there's
Yes,
rumors of
yes,
UFC Sweden
yes,
in this year as well, which I think is massive for the UFC to go back on the road across Europe.
yes, without a
I
doubt.
think,
Plus, it'll make them more money anyway. So,
yeah,
it's a good idea, and I look forward to that as well. Yeah,
obviously because of the title fight is in May. So what ramifications would a dominant win for either guy? Because I feel like that if anyone wins by unanimous decision, I don't feel like that really stamps their authority saying, give me the next shot. I think I think it'll be another number one contenders fight
could very
for,
well be. Then they would see if anyone there wins by dominating performance. Yeah, perhaps. Although, I mean, you're right because Umar is so great and he's looked so dominant, but he hasn't fought a tremendous amount of top guys. But neither
I don't think
has
he's
Sean.
faced a ranked opponent yet. I think he's still looking for a ranked
Right.
guy to go, yeah, I'll take on the challenge. 'Cause I think everyone sees the surname and sees the undefeated streak and goes, yeah, we'll take someone else. We don't want to
Yeah.
take him.
Yeah.
I think
Oh
that's his
yeah.
problem at the moment. No one is going, yeah, I fancy trying to take his O away. I think most people are going, yeah, I think we'll put the phone down when we see that.
Yes. Yeah.
When we
Without a
see
doubt.
Dane's name on the
Not
phone.
a lot of people are calling out Umar. Without a doubt. No, I agree. I think it's going to be a great fight. I think the larger cage favors the better wrestler here, which is Corey Sandhagen.
Yeah.
Um, it's a really good matchup of two guys that are right in their prime. I know that Marlon Chito Vera has only recently either turned 30 or he has not yet turned 30. And I think Corey may be a year or two older than him. So they're both smack dab in their prime, fighting prime. And it's going to be a really good fight. They're both good strikers. Um, Cheeto definitely seems to be able to punch and kick equally. Uh, but then again, Corey kind of does, although I think he favors punching a bit more, but his kicks are pretty good.
I think his knees up the middle,
Yes,
especially
knees.
his
I was going to
knockout
say
with
yes,
Edgar. I think
yes.
it's
Yes,
unorthodox.
yeah. It seems like he tends to throw harder techniques, whereas Vera tends to be more technical, wanting to mix in a lot of different strikes. Um, Vera is a guy that has a lot of finishes on his record, and he likes to
Yeah.
finish. I interviewed Vera about 4 years ago, and he was on a streak of about 4 finishes or 5 in a row, I believe. And I asked him the question, how are you at bantamweight finishing all these guys fight after fight? And most of the other bantamweights are going mostly decisions. And what he told me, I never forgot because it really made a lot of sense. And I hadn't really thought of this, but he said, I'm willing to put myself in bad positions that a lot of guys are not willing to put themselves in. I'm willing to put myself in a dangerous position, actually, to be able to get the results and get a
Yeah.
possibility of a finish. And he said a lot of guys are wanting to avoid putting themselves in that risky position. And we said I'm willing to take those risks because, no risk, no reward for the most part, of the larger risk, sometimes the larger reward. So I know he's going to try to do that. It's going to be a battle of wits. Both I like both guys, but I'm leaning a bit towards Sandhagen. But I think it should be a very, very good fight, and I think it could very well go the distance. If not, I think it's going to come close. I don't think this is going to be a fight that's over in one round or possibly even
Oh
two.
no.
Yeah.
No, I don't think it'll definitely be the bloodiest fight of the year. I can just see them both at the end just dripping crimson after an absolute war. I think his win over Dominic Cruz, his knockout, I think his confidence is going to be on a high at the moment, because I think he was the first person to finish Dominic Cruz who wasn't fighting for the title, which I think was a crazy statistic, that he was the first one to finish Cruz in a non-title bout. So I think his confidence is going to be sky high. But I do feel like in the landscape of the bantamweight division, obviously you've got Henry Cejudo returning against Aljamain Sterling. I do feel like that regarding that fight, I do feel like this is Aljamain Sterling's last fight at bantamweight. I think regardless of whether or not he wins or loses, I think this is his last fight before he goes up to 45.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that will happen, or do you think he's just saying that he's going to move up, but he's never actually going to move up? Because I believe that he will move up to let his friend.
Yes, I do think, and I sure wish I could be able to see this better than just a thumbnail, so I could, but it's just not allowing me to see this in anything but a thumbnail. I'm sorry, I'm not going to worry about that, although it'd be nice if I could do that, but nevertheless I can't. I do think he does plan to go up, but I think part of it is because Merab is his teammate and close friend, and they don't want to fight. So I feel that Merab is now the number 1 or number 2 contender, and they don't want to fight. So I think in reality, he's going to go up on a win. On a loss, I don't know. He might go up on a loss. He's a pretty big guy for the bantamweight division. Now, it doesn't mean he's going to be a good size featherweight, because he may be a bit undersized for featherweight, but he may not be. He's somewhat of a taller fighter for that lower weight division. But yeah,
I think 160. I think he walks around 160, 165.
Right, Aljamain, yeah, something like that. Yeah, so yeah, no, I think his intention is to do that so that he won't be holding up Merab. And then I think, Merab, based off that amazing performance over Petr Yan, and I picked him to win. I couldn't believe he was 2-1 underdog, or 2.5 to 1 underdog. But yeah, I think Merab would deserve next either way, but he's only going to take it if it's not Aljo.
Yeah, I am looking forward to that fight because Henry Cejudo is back. Be interesting to see if he's got any octagon rust in him, because I do feel like that could be a thing that could be playing on people's minds when they're thinking of the fight. They're thinking, yes, Triple C, the 2 division weight world champion, is back, but he's been out of the game since 2020, 3 years out. I just don't know whether or not he's going to come back and is going to be, what we saw last time out. Yeah. So UFC 286 was last weekend. We saw Leon Edwards successfully retain his UFC welterweight title against Kamaru Usman. What did you think of his performance, and did you see him as the rightful winner? Because you see online that people thinking that Usman won the fight, won the trilogy, but for me, I couldn't see it. I couldn't see that.
I expected Leon would win and picked he would win. I suggested he would win easier than the first time, and I guess that could be debated because he won by knockout the first time, but he had been losing the previous rounds. I had Leon winning 4 rounds to 1, but I could see 5 rounds to 0 as well for Leon.
I think I scored it 4 rounds to 1. I think one judge
but then with
scored
1 round with a point removed, though, as well, of course.
Yeah, I think one judge scored it 9-9, which I would have agreed with, but I think after the fence grab, I think Usman just saw out the round, so I
Mhm.
could see why it was given as a 10-8. But the thing is that when he goes in for the fourth round, you're thinking, he's just undone all of his hard work to go 2 rounds up, and now it's a 2-round shootout.
Yeah.
Is he going to be able to stay the course, or is Kamaru just going to see this as an opportunity to just take control and regain his title? But I think I
Yeah.
definitely saw it 4 rounds to 1. I think the bigger shock this weekend was Colby Covington weighing in as the backup fighter, which
Mhm.
no one saw coming. I think I had to message Callum um, during work telling him, "Oh, you heard that Colby's weighed in as the backup fighter," and he was like,
Mhm.
"No, no, he can't have done." So I had to
Right.
show him that he weighed in. Like, what was your reaction seeing him return? And was there any inkling across the MMA journalists that he was even going to make a return at the event?
No, no. Chael Sonnen said he had been aware of that, but he is an insider, still on very good terms with the UFC and having been a title contender in his time. And but I think very select people knew, and very few, and I wasn't one of them. Um, so yeah, I was quite surprised. So after the fact, I heard that Usman had been nursing a bad injury, and that they thought that there was a small chance he wasn't going to be able to go. I think they also said that Usman had a great deal of weight to lose, also in a short period of time. But then someone's also told me that Colby had to lose an enormous amount of weight also for that
Yeah, I
weigh-in.
saw that.
Yeah, so it's hard to know which of all that is true, but I mean, it makes sense. They first of all, in a situation like that in England, with the main event being Leon Edwards and a title fight, if they did not have a backup and Usman or even Leon wouldn't have been able to compete, it would have been a disaster. People would have demanded their money back.
Yeah.
So they had to have someone, and it had to be someone that was reasonably deserving. So the
I
onus
always
was
believed that it would have been Bilal Muhammad. If
right.
there was a
Yeah,
backup,
yeah.
he
That
would
would
have
have
made sense for if Leon pulled out because it's a fresh matchup between him and Kamaru Usman. And if Kamaru pulled out, then there's already a narrative there with the fact that those two fought before Leon was winning, then the unfortunate eye poke. So there was
yeah,
a story there. So and he's also more deserving last fight knocked out Sean Brady to take away his undefeated streak.
yeah, yeah. The only thing I think against Bilal was that he was absolutely, indeed, clearly losing to Leon in that fight. I've heard many people say the luckiest thing that happened to Bilal in that fight was an eye poke. And I'm not disrespecting Bilal at all. He's an amazing fighter. And I do believe he's improved since then. He spent some time
Yeah.
training with Habib and AKA Jim under Javier Mendez. And I've interviewed Coach Mendez many times over the years. He's a great guy, and it's always an honor chatting with him. But I think it's possible the UFC thought about that. That, you know what? It looks like if the fight went down the same way without the eye poke, that it could be a short night or a dominant night for Leon Edwards. And in reality, nobody's really beaten Colby that badly. When Kamaru Usman stopped him, it had been an even fight. Some
Mm.
people even felt the stoppage was too soon. And then in the second fight, arguably Colby could have been given the decision. It was very, very
Yeah. I think
right.
I had that fight 3-2 Kamaru.
Yeah,
If it would
I
have
had
went
it.
the other way, I would
Yeah,
have been no robbery here. I could have
no, yeah.
seen the guy win it 3-2.
I had it 3-2 Covington in that fight. So, it kind of explains, so yeah. So basically, they made a decision. I think far less people would have been upset if it was Bilal. Probably no one would have been upset had it been Bilal. But there's also some talk that there was some issues with maybe Colby dropping the charges against Jorge Masvidal.
I thought that may have been a situation because Jorge Masvidal's fighting on the 287 card as the co-main.
Yes, against Gilbert Burns, right?
Against Gilbert Burns. I thought, hold on, hasn't he got something hanging over his head at the moment? And then you see Colby's back. He's been given the next title shot, which I don't believe he should have had it given straight off the bat. He should have at least waited till after the co-main event at UFC 287, because now a big welterweight clash that you've just gone, doesn't matter who wins.
Yeah, I know. I forget who mentioned that to me the other day, but that's true. It's unfortunate that maybe
Because if
Dana should have
Masvidal
waited.
wins that co-main, then you've got the story there with Edwards, the 3-piece and the soda.
Yeah,
That would have
yeah.
sold more, especially if it did come back to the UK. Then that would have sold more than Colby versus Leon, if that was the
That's
case.
true. That's true too. That's true too. So they may have had some missed opportunity there. Either that, or they actually made a deal with Colby to to drop the charges and come in. Speaking of the 3-piece of a soda, I'd love to one day get a 3-piece of fish and chips over in England. I think the fish and chips I've heard are so much better there than they are here in the United States. So I'd rather have 3-piece of fish and chips at a proper English restaurant with a soda one day. Maybe I will.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think Tom Aspinall was on the commentary, and I think he's just put out fight news that he may be coming back in July.
Yes.
I think he dropped a hint saying that it was coming back to London. So do you think
Nice.
that's going to be him headlining, or do you think that's going to be him co-main and we're going to see Leon against Colby in London?
That would be great. I think it probably would be co-main, but you never know. But he's already called out this his opponent. It looks like maybe Marcin Tybura, and I think he called him a big Polish dummy. Which is kind of
Yeah, I did see that. I think that's a perfect comeback fight for him.
Nothing beats the most recent trash talk, though, from Tyson Fury, your British Gypsy King. People are quite angry at him because it seems like he's doing this now where he's making it possible. But still, the stuff that he said about Usyk, this last video, I've been laughing about for like 36 hours straight. The way he said, and it's funny, too, because as an American, the British, we usually find your accent is like a classy accent, even if it's not the snobby accent. All British accents usually remind us Americans that sound like a very proper, classy person. And then to hear a guy say, "You shitbag, you bug-eyed, gappy tooth piece of shit, slimy fucker," it's so weird for us to hear. It's like it just seems so funny. Because to be saying these things with a British accent, but for you, it's probably normal you're hearing that. But man, that guy is funny. The stuff that he said that we call him that guy, bug-eyed, gappy tooth.
I just feel like with that fight, I just don't know whether or not he's gone. Where's the fight taking place? And they've gone Wembley. Okay, how much money's in the pot?
Now apparently it's off.
It's off. And I reckon he's gone, how much money's in the pot if we go to Wembley? Oh, I just had that for Chisora. Go to Saudi and let's see how much money we get. Well, we're not doing anything till the back end of the year. So if you want to wait till then, wait till then. But the fact is that he threw every obstacle at Usyk and he's gone, fine. What, 30, 70?
Yeah, and the guy said, "I'll take it."
Rematch.
What happened? It should have been good to go, right?
Have it, but I'm sort of fed up with saying Willie, won't he, Willie, won't he, Willie, won't he? Because you can't go around saying that you're the best of your generation
if you're not wanting to fight.
Not beating everyone. And now there's rumors that he's going to retire again. And
and then he made a statement. He said he doesn't want to fight any foreigners. He said American and English is who he's willing to fight. You don't want to say that. I don't know. He's a funny guy, a big, tough but funny guy. We're calling people a proper shit bag.
The classiest of trash talks is
You
Tyson Fury.
ugly 14 stone piece of crap.
The little middleweight.
Yeah. Oh my
He's
goodness.
scared the little middleweight. That's why it's baffling that he's not actually signed. If he's just a little middleweight, then
Right.
surely you
could beat
can't
him, of course, right?
go and beat him. But yeah, I think that fight will happen, but I think it'll be Saudi Arabia back end of this year.
Yeah, you could be right. I can't wait to see the ring entrance of the Gypsy King in that one. Maybe he looked like he dressed as a prince or something like that.
Yeah, I do think it's going to be closer than what people think. It's going to be a lot closer than what I think Tyson's thinking.
Yeah, Usyk is very tough. Usyk is a very tough guy.
And he'll just get rounds in the bank, and you'll be like, "What? I'm 3 rounds down already."
Yeah,
but I've not landed anything.
Oh yeah,
but he's already working.
That guy's going to put pressure. That guy's going to put pressure on the Gypsy King for sure. And it'd be
I don't think Tyson's going to be able to sort of lean on him, because I think Usyk's going to be in and out very, very quickly.
Yeah. His cardio is great. He's very determined, and as not an extremely large heavyweight, his whole thing is using his movement and speed. And this is one thing that normally Tyson Fury's opponents don't have. So
usually Tyson's the one that's got the speed, the unorthodox movement. But I think in the Wilder 3 fight, he looked a bit slower than usual. And I don't know if that's because has Father Time caught up with him, because Father Time is undefeated.
Yes.
Like when your time is done, your time is done. Or whether or not that was just an off night for him. But it's going to be interesting to see how that fight goes at the back end of the year. Just to sort of wrap things up, what are if you have to play matchmaker, you've got money's not an object for the fighters. What are the 3 fights you'd like to see the UFC book this year that haven't already been confirmed?
Certainly Francis Ngannou, John Jones, but that's talking about someone who's no longer part of the promotion. Yeah. I don't know if is that considered one or no, since he's not part of the promotion.
I think it could happen. I think it could happen. If I just have a feeling that it will only happen if Ngannou's trip to boxing doesn't end well, and he has to go back to the UFC, and then the UFC going to be like, "Well, you're playing by our rules now. You've not made the big money, so you'll have to sign the contract." Yeah, I'd count that as one.
Okay, you can count that, but maybe I'll give you 3 more just in case that one is kind of off the topic a bit. Like to see Yuri Prokaska come back against Jamal Hill. I really would like to see that. Like to see Leon versus either Shavkat or Hamzat, one of the Eastern Bloc killers.
Yeah.
Shavkat, they're talking about. Well, Shavkat's fine. Shavkat's a welterweight. They're talking about not allowing Hamzat, though, to be a welterweight since he missed weight.
Yeah.
So dramatically.
They'd give him one more chance, though. He said they'd give him one more chance to make it, but
could be tough. He's a big guy, but then what do you call him is big also. Shavkat, but we'll see. But yeah, I'd love to see one of those guys against Leon. I mean, I believe Beneil Dariush is going to beat Charles Oliveira, and I'd love to see Beneil get his shot against Islam. And I think Beneil has a very good chance there. Beneil, I've been interviewing Beneil for 5 years. He's a really great guy, and he's
incredibly underrated. I feel like. I think people just skip over him because. Like,
he doesn't talk any trash. He's a religious
trash talking. He's always very respectful. I think his performance against Gamrot, especially, I think people took note. Oh, he's actually he's a contender.
Yeah, without a doubt. So I'd love to see that. And if we couldn't see that, I would love to see a rematch between Volkanovski and Islam.
Yeah.
And if not that, I know this is giving you several, but even even Volkanovski defending against Yair Rodriguez for the
Yes.
featherweight. Love those are the ones I'd love to see the most. Although I am excited to see Henry Cejudo against Aljamain Sterling. I am very excited about that. But yeah, love to see the ones I just mentioned, which were like four. The Islam Benil or Volk Benil, Volk
I think
Yair.
Volk Yair has been booked for UFC 290. I think that's been.
Has it? I think
booked.
maybe I did hear something like that. That's
Yes.
going to be
It's on
brilliant.
the Jones card as well. So it's Jones Stipe. It's Jones Stipe main event, and then it's them co-main.
That's fantastic.
Co-main
That's
event, which is
fantastic.
fantastic.
That's an amazing card. Yeah. So those are the ones that I'd love to see, and I'm also looking forward to seeing Curtis Blades against Pavlovich.
Yes.
I had a fun post the other day. I thought after I watched that hilarious, hysterical minute and a half of Tyson Fury cursing about Usyk. I thought which British UFC fighter could take that persona possibly and start saying that. And I said it'd have to be maybe Tom Aspinall. Maybe Aspinall should call his opponent shit.
Former sparring partner of Tyson's as well.
Is he really? Nice?
Yeah, former sparring partner. Yeah.
Could you picture Aspinall calling one of his opponents a proper shit bag, a bug-eyed, gappy tooth, ugly, But then again, I said to myself, do we need that necessarily in MMA? Probably not. There's a bit more respect and honor. We don't. Although it would be really funny. I mean, I think they'd probably
would be hilarious.
You can see Aspinall. I mean, he's already by calling Tybura a big Polish dummy. It sounds like
his comments about what he's been doing whilst he's recovering, saying that he's completed a watching. Not going to name the website that he completed watching, but he dropped something like that whilst he was recovering from his knee injury, that he's completed a website, watching stuff off a website. So yeah, I think he's hilarious. I think he's got his character. I find him quite witty. I quite like listening to Tom Aspinall. I think fights that I'd like to see. I think I'd like to see. This is going to sound odd, but I'd like to see the winner of Aljamain Sterling, Henry Cejudo, fight Volkanovski for the featherweight title. I do believe that one of the big reasons why Henry Cejudo's back is so he can claim the bantamweight title. So there's more of a chance for him to fight Volk, which he's been pretty vocal of doing, saying he wants to try to be the first triple champion in mixed martial arts, I think. So I do believe that's the main reason why he's back, because he wants to have the nickname C4. So that's one that I'd like to definitely like to see. I think I'm Justin Gaethje versus Dustin 2.
Yes, that would be fantastic.
Because they're both, I think Dustin more recently, since Gaethje's win over Fiziev, is saying, yeah, I'd like that opportunity again. So I'd definitely like to see that one. I think last one, I'd go Alex Pereira versus Jamal Hill. Because I do have a feeling that may happen.
It could if Yuri doesn't heal up quick enough, it could. But Alex has got to get by Israel Adesanya.
Yeah.
I think Israel is very determined to.
Yeah, that's going to be a heck of a main event. It
is. I'm really excited about it. What do you think about Paddy the Baddy? What do you think his next move is?
I think he's going to run back Jared Gordon again, because that was very unconvincing performance. Yeah. I thought he lost.
It was, yeah. I thought he lost too. Yeah.
I think that whole week, including fight week, I think his star has gone down. I think, in my estimations personally, I think he's been built here as the next McGregor, but he's not the next McGregor, because there's only one Conor McGregor. There's only one of him. And I think his resume in his fourth fight in the UFC was Dustin Poirier, and he knocked him out inside a couple of rounds. Paddy's fourth fight is unanimous decision win over Jared Gordon. So I feel like that he needs to. There's definitely parts of his game that he needs to improve. Because I do feel like that he's still got big holes in his game for someone that's been fighting for over a decade. I feel like the way he hangs his chin out, if he fights someone that's got knockout power, I think that someone's going to put him to sleep. And that's something that, as a Brit, you wouldn't want to see. But I just feel like that if he wants to break inside that top 15 and challenge for the title, he needs to make major adjustments, or he's going to be a fan. He's going to be a fan-friendly fighter that's going to put on great fights, but you know that he's never quite going to get there, which is a shame considering the potential he had coming out of Cage Warriors.
Exactly. I think he's got a lot of potential, but yeah, I think he should run that back. Interesting guy. I think he's the only guy that consistently eats like a full dinner at the post-fight.
Yeah, that's another issue as well. That's another issue that he's going to have to conquer, because I feel like he spends most of his camps losing weight instead of working on techniques, which I think is also another issue that.
Yeah, he's eating, as they say, he likes to eat the scran.
Yeah, I think he's like a light heavyweight. He walks around at light heavyweight when he's out of camp, which is crazy considering that he's a lightweight. I think that is absolutely mental, but
it is. He's a unique guy. I like the fact though that he has shown love and compassion to men that are suffering from mental illness, as he had that friend take his own life.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard a fighter mention that.
No.
And after all, most causes around the world kind of exclude men as being a concern. And I think in this day and age, it seems like things are a bit harder for men to make their way always and succeed and find a mate and or wife. And I think that he seemed really sincere when he said, reach out to me, although, if he says that, you wonder how many guys that are dealing with the emotional issues that might try to reach out to him, but who knows? But still, though, the idea that he said, look out for your friends, your mates, as you guys. Yeah. So that was cool. I think that was a solid, really good thing.
Yeah, definitely. I think it is important that he brings that up, because I do think a lot of people are struggling more than people realize. Because it's definitely a tough world out there.
Yes,
but it'll be good to see him back in the octagon. I think it'll be good to see him back as a British, because he's probably one of the Britain's biggest stars, and I do feel like that. I don't think he'll be at the next event, because I think he's still walking around in a boot. So even if the rumors even if the rumors of a July London card is even a possibility, I don't see him back till like September. I think he'll be the last quarter. We'll see him probably. Do not be surprised if we see him in like November, December this year, because I think he's going to take the time to recover. Because if he rushes back and then doesn't win, then people are going to be like, maybe he should have taken the extra couple of months.
Right. Well, how many Scousers are there left? Darren Till being out of the UFC.
It's Molly McCann, I think.
Molly, is it just Molly and Patty, or is there
Molly, Patty? I think those are like the two
main Scousers.
Yeah, the two main Scousers. Yeah, I think those are the main two Scousers. But British MMA as a whole is sort of experiencing this boom period.
Yes, without a doubt. And I'm so happy, because I know you guys can be very passionate fans. I think it was great that the Brits did so well on that last card, 286, and that Leon won. And I think
I don't know how Makayev is still walking around. I just don't know how he's not got like he's done his ACL. I'm surprised it's only 6 to 8 weeks for back training. Because he wants to be the youngest ever champion. The thing is, I think he's going to find a problem. People aren't going to be calling him out. I think that's going to be the issue. People are going to be like, what?
Oh yeah,
Makayev's the next fight.
yeah,
I will fight
yeah.
someone else.
No, people don't want him, and he also is he's showing that he's not going to tap either. And I know there's controversy, but people are a bit silly when they're pointing out when it looked like he tapped, he was not in the knee
No,
bar.
that yeah, I don't like that. Like
Yeah,
people, especially online, they see everything. Like,
right.
oh my god, he tapped. Like there was no
There was,
submission.
right. There was no submission at all, and
He
it
even
turns
came
out,
out and said that the
yeah,
opponent caught his
and,
shorts or something,
right,
and it was a
and that's what
little
it was, and that's what it was. He was kind of saying, "Don't worry about it, keep going." But I do think he probably should be properly warned and aware that you got to be very careful, regardless if you're doing something that's looking like tapping. If the referee in the match wasn't the most experienced and didn't notice he was not in a submission, then the referee could have ended it. And one of the things that is true, I'll make this short, is that there are some unusual submission holds. Now, there it was quite clear he wasn't caught in anything,
yeah.
at least from I'm a purple belt jujitsu intermediate, level. But perhaps if the referee who wasn't really much of a jujitsu player, or perhaps if one arm was entangled a bit, or if someone's foot was kind of intermeshed with someone else,
Yeah.
a referee can't know, and a referee, when it appears someone's tapping, if anything looks tied up, rather than him looking to say, well, that's not properly tied up or whatever, and then let someone get their leg or arm broken, he may need to jump in quickly.
Yeah.
So I hope that Mokaev never again tries to be such a gentleman and tap to imply to someone we're all good, keep going, because it's caused numerous people to be angry and people to feel it should have been over. But there was no, if he wasn't going to tap to that knee bar, how would he?
Why is he going to be tapping when
Something,
he's
yeah. I mean,
yeah?
I guess the only thing someone could say is, was that after the knee bar, or that
No,
was
it's
after?
before.
It was before. Okay.
Yeah.
So then in that situation, it's preposterous. I was going to say if it was after, someone could say maybe he was getting a delayed effect of agonizing pain in his knee. But since it was before, yeah, there was no.
Yeah, I just didn't see it whatsoever. I was like,
Yeah.
he's
Right.
on top. He's not
Yeah.
in danger. So why
There
would he
was
tap?
nothing. Yeah. So, but what he did really prove by not tapping to that knee bar is that he's not going to tap. I don't think any of these Eastern Bloc guys are probably going to tap. And the only exception would be if they have to face each other.
Yeah.
Then maybe there would be some pride knowing that if you tapped, it was to someone from your same area. But even then, they might not. That's something that could get ugly, because if these guys get into some bad situation, they may, if you're choked out, you'll just be put to sleep. But
Yeah.
it would be pretty ugly if someone catches them in
And like
something.
a knee bar.
Although
And
that
please
was a bit
tap.
ugly. That was
And like,
a bit
please
ugly.
tap. And then the guy's like, no, you'll have to pop my knee
Yeah,
for the ref to get off before I'm even considering tapping, which I think is crazy. But the
yeah,
Eastern European fighters, I think they're cut from a different cloth
yeah. Different breed, really.
compared to most
And I'm
fighters.
not going to say that no American or British guys are cut from that same cloth, but it seems like so many of those guys are cut from that cloth. They just the same mindset. They're like Terminators. I think they were thrown out. I think they were thrown out into the snow to train when they were like 3 or 4 years old, and told if you come back crying, then you're off the team, essentially. So stay out there until we come and get you. You know what I mean? Which is,
Crazy.
yeah, very rough. It's like, throwing a child and saying, you better swim, because if you don't swim, you're going to drown. 2 years old or whatever, makes for a tough kid, though, in some circumstances.
Yeah, definitely. Colin, a massive thank you for joining me today. Let the people know where they can find you.
Absolutely. MMA Power Hour. We've got a load of video footage, because we were a video podcast for nearly 6 years, and now we're over 6 years in, but we've gone about 3 months nearly as a audio podcast only on Twitter Spaces. We record every episode, so we've had numerous big guests, including Benil Dariush, including Dan Henderson, the legend, including some of the great coaches. out there. Eric Nixick, Mark Montoya, several other well-known fighters. We've had Dan Ige jumped in there. Drew Dober was in. Andre Petrovsky. I'm forgetting, but we've
Matt Favola, because I know you sent me
Yep, Matt
something. Yeah.
Favola, absolutely. And so we intend to keep doing the Twitter Spaces. We may get back to the video format at some point. We've thrown stuff up on YouTube, but only randomly over the last few years. We were focusing almost entirely on Facebook, which turns out not to have been the most brilliant choice. But so we threw things kind of up on YouTube as an afterthought. So while we do have some things up there that perhaps have 1,000 views or a few hundred, some of them may only have 100 or even 80 or whatever. But on Facebook, we had many shows that were getting 10, 20, 30,000 views. But that was on Facebook. Not that it matters, but nevertheless, our content is really good, and you'll see some great interviews over the years. 2-hour show every week, and we've virtually not missed a week for 6 years straight, maybe 1 week per year or two, and that's all. And otherwise, every Tuesday, 6 to 8 p.m. on Twitter Spaces. It's interactive. If you want to jump in, you very likely will get a chance to speak.
Hopefully, I will jump in at some point. When you sent me the link to jump in, I had to be up 5 a.m. UK time for work, so I couldn't have joined that time. But
yep,
it's tough because it schedule changes. Then I will definitely jump in.
Absolutely, we'd love to have you. I'd definitely make you a speaker. And I do understand that by 6 to 8 Pacific time, that means it's going to be from 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. British time. And that's until we change the clocks, and then it gets worse. I think 4 months from now, we'll change the clocks, and then you'll be 8 hours ahead of us. So it would be between 2 and 4 in the morning. So actually, now's your chance.
Now's the chance for the clocks change.
Yes, well, we've got 4 months or so, but now you can get into the early part one. But still, if you have to ever get up at 5 or 6 in the morning, none of it's good anyway. Whenever you can make it, that would be great. We'd be happy to have you.
Yeah, and I'll stick the link to the MMA Power Hour YouTube channel in the comment, so you'll be able to check out all the interviews that you've done over the years.
That would be great. Now, one last thing. We don't have a lot of activity on that YouTube channel. Many of the I'll leave it at this. Many of our MMA Power Hour episodes we had up under the Hannibal TV, which was our distributor. But whichever you would want to do. I don't want you to get more work to do, but we've got some up on MMA Power Hour, and then we've got a lot up on the Hannibal TV,
And links to all of that will be in the description. Make sure to leave a like, a comment, and I'll do another video probably tomorrow, reviewing UFC tonight, Sandhagen versus Vera. So I'll be reviewing that whole card because I will be crazy enough to stay up and watch most of it.
Excellent. It's been a pleasure, my friend. You're doing a great job here, and always happy to come back and chat with you. And you're always welcome to jump into our show any Tuesday night that you're still awake, which would be early Wednesday morning.
Will do. Thank you very much, Colin, and everyone. Make sure to hit the like, share, and subscribe button, and we'll see you all very soon.
Awesome. You're very welcome. Thanks, mate.